One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. Zack Barnett with FootballScoop.com is on One Question today. We're recording this on Friday, December what is it, Zach? The 9th, so the carousel is still turning. FootballScoop.com is right in the middle of it all. So we want to talk a little bit about the meat and potatoes of how they do what they do. But Zach, I'm curious, this time of year, do you and Scott and Doug, I mean, are these like just constant 18-hour, 20-hour days? How is your day structured, if at all, during the carousel every year?
That's a good question. There's not a whole lot of structure to it, but the consistent part of it is, it's first thing you wake up to the last thing you do when you go to sleep. And there have been plenty of times when I've been, awoken out of sleep due to a phone call or text or something like that, and it's just constant go, and from dawn till dusk and well past that. A whole lot of teamwork, a whole lot of constant communication, and at the same time, each of us have families. I have 3 kids. Scott has 3 kids, and Doug and his wife just had a little boy this fall. So, we also have, family duties and Christmas time, and then, same thing everybody else has. So not a lot of spare time during the month of December.
And when you guys mention sources via Twitter or other social media outlets, your website, give me a sense of the cross-referencing process, or how often you have somebody who you just knows what's going on and you can run with it. How does the sourcing piece of this, and I'm not necessarily asking so much how does it work, but how tenuous can it be for you guys once you go public with a source's information?
That it really all starts with Scott. He has sources under, every rock in America, and really in some that stretch beyond this continent, to be quite honest. And he, just about with every staff in the country has a guy or something like that, people that he talked to. Then obviously it's a whole lot of coaches that we hear this from. So, and then, Doug and I have sources as well. So it's a whole lot of cross-referencing with each other, a whole lot of, as I said, teamwork, and then, and a whole lot of relationships really is really what it boils down to in the relationship that we have and the relationships that, primarily Scott has with coaches and people in the coaching world across the world, really.
What level of responsibility, and you guys are commonly, sometimes even out in front of what many would consider quote unquote mainstream media. That's a nebulous term these days with social media and your all's database of contacts and relationships, of course, again, supersede many in the ESPNs of the world or the local news stations of the world or newspapers. But what sort of responsibility do you guys talk about having internally about making sure what you're reporting is legit?
We take that, very seriously because, we were talking off air here about, the reach we have, and, every time I need to be reminded about, how big our reach is, I just got to write something that somebody doesn't like, and then they'll, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, they'll let us know about it. So, and, the goal of Football Scoop is, the first and foremost, our ethos is to help coaches. And so, that starts by getting information out there that's accurate to coaches so that they can, have an accurate picture of the industry as it is. And if there's ever, a question of do we or do we not, which is something that we wrestle with, on a daily basis with, information that comes in, the question that really decides it is, does this help anybody? Does this help coaches? Does it help this coach, the coach in question, stuff like that.
So as we record this, I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head in the FBS arena, who's still open. Houston obviously just hired this morning with Major Applewhite. USF is still open. Temple, Cincinnati. I'm sure there's others that don't come to mind. And I don't want to talk about any specific job, but I'm curious of how you see the marketplace and trends within the marketplace, maybe this offseason or over the past couple of off seasons. Anything you've been surprised by?
A lot of people in our industry have kind of pointed to this being this off season was going to be a big one, and I never really thought it was going to be one, just because it's getting more expensive to pay coaches, and so that means it's more expensive to fire coaches. So there was definitely a few years there where when the money was coming in, schools were more trigger happy, and then now that it keeps rising, I think you see that slowing down. And then another thing that's kind of been interesting to monitor the past few years is the jobs coaches take to move up to the Power Five. You've seen some coaches leave smaller head coaching jobs to take assistant jobs at the Power Five level, viewing that as a better job than a better chance to move up to the highest level than to stay where they are.
And as part of that conversation of what you're hearing behind the scenes with coaches, it's also it's a money factor, right? So I'm thinking of Pete Limbo going from Ball State to Maryland, of course, and I don't know his two salaries off the top of my head, but I'm guessing they're comparable. And he's got the assistant head coach title too in College Park, maybe. But are you hearing behind the scenes what maybe we read a lot about, which is there's beginning to be an even wider gap between Power Five assistant coaches, of course, and Group of Five head coaches?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, just earlier this week, USA Today released their list of assistant coaching salaries, and for the first time, they had strength coaches in there, and there are a couple strength coaches at the bigger schools that make more than head coaches at smaller schools. So, a good way to look at this is Penn State offensive coordinator Joe Moorhead. He was a successful head coach at Fordham, and thought if I want to get a big time job, the best way to do that is not to be the head coach at Fordham, but to go be the Penn State offensive coordinator. And now he may very well end up getting a job this offseason, and if not, then certainly next year will, as long as he keeps doing what he's doing in State College.
Yeah, and Joe was reported to be Purdue's next choice after Jeff Brom, had Jeff Brom not taken that job, right? Yeah,
and here, as we said on Friday, Temple's still open. I think he would make a lot of sense there if they asked me, which they obviously have not. But if they did, I think he'd make a lot of sense there.
How often have you guys been asked before by an AD or a senior administrator who's part of a search? I mean, surely it's happened.
Yeah, it's happened. I don't want to say how often it happens, but it's happened before.
Give us some D2 or D3 head coaches that might make their way up the ladder in coming years.
I really like Glenn Caruso, what he's done at St. Thomas. They're probably I'm no D3 expert, but I think they're probably the best team, the best case to knock off Mount Union this year. And then what Northwest Missouri State has done under Adam Dorrell, I think he's a rising star at that level.
Is it accurate to say this time of year you carry like 3 external battery packs with you for your computer and your cell phone at all times?
It's funny because a few years back, Scott was constantly having that problem of having his phone just die in the middle of the day and having to unplug or to constantly stay plugged in. And then my wife convinced me to do the iPhone iOS update because so we could play those stupid little games that we have. And now I'm hearing of all these horror stories that she has and other people have that their phones just dying in the middle of the day. And then it happened to me the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, if this happens now or during the convention, I will be just so dead. So luckily that doesn't happen, but I can't say that I'm not worried about it.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.